Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and this time we've got the pleasure of watching Pompous Magnus playing in the brand new Tier 10 Czechoslovakian medium tank, the TVP T50/51. Now Magnus must certainly love this vehicle. I checked it out and he's from the North American server, by the way. He has played 150 games nearly in this vehicle and it's only been out a week, so you must truly love this tank, buddy. Maybe you're going to become the Sundu Bujige of a TVP 50/51. And so I was thoroughly looking forward to seeing the capabilities of this tank in an experienced player who finally gets to, you know, when you play the tank a lot of times in a short period of time, you do develop so much more of a synergy to it. So for anyone who is watching this and going, well, I have no idea there are even Czechoslovakian medium tanks put in the game. What's the speciality of the TVP? Well, it has a very novel autoloader. It gets a gun that's pretty equivalent to a Tier 10 Soviet medium tank, with 248mm of penetration, APCR rounds, and 320 alpha damage. But as we can see, it has a magazine with 4 shots instead of just the single shot guns that the Soviet tanks all have. So that means that you've got 1,280 potential damage per magazine. Now the beautiful thing about this tank is that it unloads way faster than the Batchat. Fair enough, its magazine isn't as big, 4 shells rather than 5, and the alpha damage isn't as much, 320 rather than 390. But the rate that you can put out the rounds and be able to pick apart either tanks with low health or just dish out a huge amount of damage in a much shorter time than the Batchat can certainly surprise your opponents. And as we're going to see later on in the replay, have serious gameplay implications, at least for the strength of this vehicle versus the Batchat. So what are the strengths of the TVP compared to the Batchat in other areas? Well, this vehicle gets 8 degrees of gun depression, whereas the Batchat gets 6. And so that gives this tank a lot more flexibility over ridge lines. He puts 1 into the T54 lightweight, his second into the AMX, and boom! Amarak taking out that AMX CDC. What a result, doing 438 effective damage with the last shell. Just see how quickly this tank unloads with only 1.5 seconds between each shell, and aim time and gun handling that feels so much better than the Batchat. You can just be so precise with putting in these 100mm 320 alpha damage rounds into your opponents. He tracks the T10, puts 1 into the upper hull, 2 into the upper hull, and pulls back. But unfortunately the T10 manages to strike him as well, doing 415 damage to his tank with that AP round. Now the armor on this tank, it's not amazing, even though the turret armor says it's 120. It just doesn't have very much protection, and even the mantlet, which you would think looked quite thick from the outside of the vehicle, isn't very good. Definitely go and check out my full review of this tank if you want to see the entirety of the armor capabilities of it. So, Pompous Magnus has already had a great game by quite a lot of Tier 10 tank standards, eh? He's picked up 3,500 damage. Oh, well, let's just give him a second. Well, actually, let's just give him 3 seconds to do 980 damage to that Lorraine and pull back before he's even managed to return fire. If he'd had that extra shell, he would have been able to finish off the Lorraine there, but not quite. So, let me try again. 4,500 damage and 2 kills in under 4 minutes into this round. And now this is the moment where you really see what this tank is capable of. 1, 2, 3, 4. Before the T49 even knew what hit him or even had a chance to return fire, the aim time on a T49 at long range like that is probably longer than the 4.5 seconds it takes this vehicle to put 400mm 320 alpha damage shells into your tank, taking out the entirety. Oh, I just love this vehicle. Look at this, E100. Oh god, no, Magnus, you're a bit cheeky there, buddy. But he puts the last one into the Lorraine as well. Gosh, this tank is so brutal. I don't even have time to commentate on what's going on specifically with that kill on the T49. That's a Tier 8 American light tank, and it was dead in 4.5 seconds. The only other vehicle that really has the capability to do something like that in the game is, I guess, the Waffenträger Alpha 100, if it doesn't low roll a couple of its shots. But the difference is, this is a medium. It's kind of got that bursty feel, like a WT Alpha 100. but fantastic mobility, 60km/h top speed limit. Now this is pretty much the only bad thing that Magnus does in the game. He's firing heat rounds at the lower plate. No, stop firing at the lower plate, you've got the side of the turret. Oh, absolute disastrous clip there. I think Magnus just spent about 20,000 credits on heat ammunition to do not a single point of damage to the E100. And that's one of the weaknesses of the TVP. You've seen its fantastic strength so far, but it has, I think, the lowest penetration of any of the medium tanks, 248 with its standard rounds. And also its premium rounds are the worst, with only 310mm of penetration on its heat rounds. So when you're trying to snipe at a very well-armored E100 at long range, which has got a lot of spaced armor protection on its side, these 310mm heat rounds really just won't do the job. Now, Magnus has had to kick so much butt here that he's got to be careful about the amount of rounds that he has left. He is alone with an FV215B183, and he's got 16 rounds left in his vehicle. You're not usually meant to have done 6,400 damage in 6 minutes and pick up 4 kills. And it was good that he actually held those shots against the E100, because for all intents and purposes, he needs to consider right now that every round is going to be needed to take out his opponent. He manages to get spotted, I believe. Oh, wow, nice dodge there from the ISU-152. Just check this out. 1, 2, 3, and another Tier 8 tank dead. Now that's nothing really new. A WT Alpha E100 would have done that in a couple of shots, and a Batchat would have pretty much done that in 3 shots. But the thing is a Batchat would have taken, gosh, nearly 6 seconds and been less accurate than this tank to be able to dish out the punishment there. The TVP just feels so precise. And look how quickly it reloads afterwards, with a 25-second magazine reload before you take into account crew skills, vents, premium consumable as an example, that all cut down that reload time. This tank just feels so much more responsive than a Batchat. Now Pompous Magnus, that was a big moment of the game there. He spotted the E100 without getting spotted himself. So now he gets the jump. The E100 thinks that Pompous is still over here. However, he has relocated and is ready to start this 1 versus 4 situation. The E100, 1, 2, 3, quite surprised he's not on fire by now, and he is gone. 1,100 damage with the 4 shots. Just absolute destruction. That E100 didn't know where the rounds were coming from before he reacted, and then it was still too late. He would have died anyway if he had turned his tank round. A Batchat would have been able to do that again with 3 rounds, but would he have been able to reload as quickly and get into position? These are the things you need to add up, and it's the big difference between the 25-second reload and the 40-second reload of the Batchat. Oh my word, this Object 140, I think he thinks that Magnus is going into a different part of the map, comes round the corner, puts a heat round into his tank, but shut down. Oh my word, what a fantastic result there. Magnus, you were very cool with your rounds, putting each one in precisely, taking out another Tier 10 tank from half health, well, over half health. That was 1,169 damage done to that Tier 10 Soviet medium tank, the Object 140. Now, I think the reason why that happened is because the Object 140 probably presumed that Magnus had traveled along here to try and go and hunt down the artillery, or alternatively be stopping in these bushes to be able to spot across, maybe to try and get some vision along here and spot there. So the Object 140 did not think that Magnus would still be in the same location, which allowed him to shut him down. Now Magnus has got 4 rounds left in this game. That T10 is on 220 hit points. And so that means that he's a guaranteed one-shot. Now, in this kind of a situation when you're assessing how am I going to deal with the remaining enemy tanks, with the rounds that you have, you've really got to think it through quite carefully. So firstly, establish, as Magnus has done here, will I be able to kill the T10 in a single shot? Well, yes, he's got 220 alpha damage. Sorry, he's got 220 health, and I've got 320 alpha damage. So that means even if I low roll, he is dead. So if I can get the side of his tank or the rear of his tank, or I just get lucky hitting the lower plate, he's gone. However, what are my chances of taking a hit from the T10? Well, I've got 383 hit points. He's got 400 alpha damage. So that means that if he hits me, pretty much 6 times out of 10, I'm dead unless he low rolls, which is the other 40% of the time. And so, really, in this kind of a situation, It's he who fires first who wins. Also, Pompous needs to think about the fact that there's an M40/M43 on the enemy team. And whenever you leave an artillery there, that's not a very good thing as well. So if the T1025 was to low roll and shoot Magnus, then the artillery is quite likely to finish him off. It also means that he can't stay in one place for very long. Because if he sits still while trying to engage the T1025, the artillery is going to be able to take him out. However, with 4.5 minutes left on the game, Pompous Magnus decides that it's time to finish it off. And thankfully, as he moves towards the cap circle, the T1025 starts to cap, probably thinking that he needs to force Pompous into coming in at him. How's he going to handle this situation? Pompous knows he's somewhere in here. There he is. He fires his first round. It doesn't connect. Second one through the rubble into the tank. Move, move, move. The artillery's going to get you. God, no, please, no. 40, 43. Oh, my word. 79 damage. Not enough artillery. And that also tells Pompous where the artillery is. Even if you get splashed, you can use this indicator at the top of your screen when you align it up straight to know exactly where you got hit from. And so, Pompous is making a beeline in that direction. He's got 2 shells left. He needs to connect both of them to be able to take this Tier 8 self-propelled gun out. It's quite likely that an M40-43 will have been able to reload in the time that it's taken Magnus to be able to get towards the cap circle. Now, I'm not sure about this. He goes into the cap circle. That's going to tell the artillery where he is. He leaves the cap circle now. He's got enough time to cap, even if he comes back a minute and a half later. But he's outmaneuvered the artillery, got his side, and this must have been a satisfying moment. Knowing that you don't have to have any kind of RNG at the end of the game, securing 10,000 damage and picking up his 9th kill. What a round this was. I did not expect that we were going to get games of this caliber so early from the TVP T50/51, but when you've got quality players like Magnus playing this tank, I guess they're going to come eventually, hey? Pompous Magnus didn't really make a single misplay in this game, apart from probably the heat rounds that he fired at that E100. It would have been far better for him to shoot the side of the turret than aiming at the lower plate at that range. But that's completely insignificant considering that the rest of this replay was a demonstration of why the new Czechoslovakian medium tank, the TVP T50/51, is a fantastic vehicle, at least for the random queue of World of Tanks. The TVP T50/51 really has a very interesting niche in World of Tanks, and that is dishing out 1,000 to 1,200 damage in a very short period of time, reloading quickly and relocating quickly to do it all over again where it is needed on the battlefield. And that is why I simply cannot wait to be able to pick up one of these tanks. I'm currently playing through the Tier 9 T50, and a big thank you to you, Magnus, for showcasing the power of this vehicle. Let's just take a very quick look at the post-game stats. What an incredible round this was. 6,000 experience for a double? Well, that can't be right. Oh, looks like America is just getting better specials than the European server. Anyway, it was 1,620 base experience point. That's a gigantic result for any Tier 10 tank. Securing himself a Faden's medal for destroying the last remaining tank with the last shell in his vehicle. Radley Walters for his 9th kill. Unsurprisingly, a high caliber medal for 10,325 damage done. As well as a tank sniper for doing the highest amount of damage at 300 meters. To be exact, 3,744 damage from 300 meters, which means that he still did 6,500 damage in relatively close quarters combat. Pompous fired 48, hit 42, and 36 of those penetrated. That's not really surprising considering the fairly low penetration that this tank gets. And when you're engaging one of these vehicles, really focus on using your armor as effectively as possible. And you might be surprised about how many rounds they bounce if they don't manage to get a weaker point on your vehicle. The armor on the TVP T50/51 isn't very good at all. He only got hit 3 times this game. All 3 of those penetrated, leaving him on low enough health to have risky engagements with any vehicle. As I mentioned earlier, this is not a cheap tank to play with regards to its ammunition, especially when Magnus had to use all of those heat rounds that bounced off that E100. But then again, a lot of the time, you're not forced to do 10,000 damage, have to fire those heat rounds, and then he would have certainly been in a profit this game. Pompous Magnus, thank you so much for sending me this replay. I thoroughly enjoyed it. You showcased the capabilities of the TVP T50/51 You've made me a lot more excited about getting this vehicle. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this replay as well. If you did, please consider giving it a like down below. It really helps the channel out. And if you want to see my full tank review on the TVP T50/51, then simply click through up here or use the more info icon in the top right-hand corner of your screen to receive a full rundown on this vehicle. And let me know in the comments down below what you think about the T50/51. Have you seen it bombing it around in any random games recently? If so, did the tank go on to have a monster result, or did it expose its very weak hull armor and go up in a blaze? And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.